G'day, ZiggyD here, back with another Ellie Buzzsaw guide in Path of Exile. In this video I'm going to be talking about how to get yourself a decent Ellie Buzzsaw endgame weapon, what you're going to be looking for, what stats, and probably how to find yourself a good bargain as well, because through kind of searching and thinking about the different mods that you can get and the different ways you can search for items, I've been able to find myself some pretty good bargains for this build as well. So, when it comes to Ellie Buzzsaw builds or elemental attack builds, they build quite differently to physical builds. With physical builds, you just slap on very high phys damage and then you're good to go. Ellie DPS is a secondary consideration when it comes to elemental Buzzsaw weapons. The order of preference for stats goes like this: attack speed, weapon elemental damage, and then added elemental damage. And then if you're a crit build, this is going to be a guide for Resolute Technique non-crit builds, but I imagine with crit builds it probably goes something like attack speed, your crit multiplier, crit chance, and then your weapon elemental damage, and then added elemental damage. So your actual elemental DPS on the weapon itself is not that important. Like, getting a little bit higher elemental damage on your weapon is going to give you a little bit more damage, but remember something like, for myself for right now, like 80% of my damage comes from auras. Your weapon is kind of a conduit or a force multiplier for the damage of your auras, and for your, you've got your auras, you've got them scaled up with aura effectiveness and inner force, then your weapon is basically what you just use to apply that damage, and you just want to apply that damage as efficiently as possible. So, let's go over what you're going to do to try and look for a weapon on PoE.trade. That's probably going to be the first thing. So let me switch on over here. Okay, so first step is going to be to search one-handed swords. You're only going to want one-handed swords, so that's pretty simple enough. And you're obviously going to want to tag online only. I suggest not tagging buyout only, because you can potentially find some pretty good bargains without buyouts. So, the first step, as I mentioned, attack speed is the most important. Now, attack speed, what you're going to be looking for endgame, I think is between 2.09 and the max of 2.16. Now, 2.09 is going to get you sort of, it only works out to be a pretty small difference. Like, attack speed is the most important, but an extra 0.02 of attack speed doesn't make a huge amount of difference when you're first kind of starting and getting into endgame. So I think searching 2.09 opens up some bargains in sort of a category people won't search. You'll often get people searching between, I only want 2.13 to 2.16 attack speed weapons, and they'll cut themselves out a lot of really good bargains that you can get, like stuff with really high weapon elemental damage rolls, for example, which can offset that attack speed for the most part. So, I recommend searching between 2.09 and 2.16. Now, you don't actually need to type 2.16 in here, because that's actually the max. And for your first search, I recommend just starting with this. So we can actually go search just here. Since that's the most important stat, we can use that for actually finding the items. So from there, you're going to want to sort by buyout, I recommend, and we'll take a look at that. We can look at stuff without buyouts later by clicking on attack speed and sorting by attack speed. But let's start with what we have here. So here is a 2.13 attack speed sword, but it has nothing else that we want. You could add weapon elemental damage for it, and for an alch it could work, but I think we're going to be able to get a better bargain than that. Here we have a 2.09, so that's in that bottom category again. 1 chaos, but we have decent cold and lightning damage. Now, for working out what is actually a good roll or what is decent, you can actually go to poemods.com, which I'll link both of these sites in the description below for you guys, and you can see what the different ranges are. This is the minimum and this is the maximum rolls here. So the item level 75 rolls is 27 to 36 between 55 to 64. So it could be something like 30 to 60 damage is going to be eye level 75 on cold. So we can go back to this one just here and say this has 16 to 32, which puts it in this range just here, 16 to 21. So this is an eye level 50 frozen. So it's about middle of the road for cold damage. And then we can look at the other one just here, 4 to 51 lightning, which I believe is middle of the road again as well. So we can see 4 to 51. Actually, that puts us in just here. Here, shocking. It's actually a little bit above average on the lightning damage. Now again, this is secondary consideration, but it's very important to note what actual mods are on the item and what you can potentially mastercraft on there as well. You can get some really good deals with mastercrafting. So this one just here has 1 to 3 physical damage. Now if you go back to PoE mods, you'll notice that physical damage, like the elemental damages, is a prefix as well. So this doesn't work well for us, because this means that we cannot craft weapon elemental damage on it. So let's go into game for a second here. And we'll go to Vagan's sharpening wheel just here. And if we go and take a look at weapon elemental damage here, you can get 8 to 22 weapon elemental damage, which was pretty decent. You can roll higher than that with drop-based stuff. It can go up to 30 something, I believe. But if we go back to PoE mods just here, you can see weapon elemental damage just here is a prefix as well. So the ideal weapon isn't tri-ele attack speed, which is what a lot of people say. The ideal weapon for a build like this is attack speed, again, number 1 stat, with 2 elements and then weapon elemental damage. Because that weapon elemental damage, something like 20, even like 15 or 20 weapon elemental damage, which you can mastercraft, is going to heavily outweigh a flight elemental roll. Because remember, we're getting the majority of our damage from auras. The weapon ele will be scaling that aura damage compared to adding just a little bit of extra ele damage. Now, there are always exceptions to the rules in Path of Exile, guys, and the exception to the rule just here is if you already have a huge amount of weapon elemental damage in your build, like on your gear and in your passive tree. So if you've invested pretty hardcore into weapon elemental damage, then maybe that's scaling the flight damage you could get on a weapon up high enough. But I think in the majority of cases, for the majority of Ele Buzzsaw builds, especially if you're following mine, you're going to be far better off getting weapon elemental damage, and it outweighs what you will get. So let's switch on back over here. This one, probably not the best. Like, this is going to be an okay starter one for 1 Chaos, but I think we can get even better for 1 Chaos. So let's move forwards just here. We have 2 elements here. Pretty mediocre rolls. You can tell that lightning roll is pretty below average. 2.11 is fine for attack speed. I think anything like 2.13, 2.12 is starting to get good. Obviously, 2.16 is going to be nicer, but starting to look okay there. So, however, we want to look at now, can we add weapon elemental damage to this? Dexterity is a suffix, and accuracy, we can check just here, I believe is a suffix as well. So we have 2 suffixes, 2 prefixes, and another suffix just there. So we can add weapon elemental damage to this. For 1 Chaos here, you have to calculate in the cost of adding weapon elemental damage, which is 3 alchs. We're looking at 2.5 Chaos for this item just here, for this weapon just here. And that's not that bad. That's not a bad one. That's a pretty decent starter one. But if you're patient and you spend more time looking for these things, you'll start to notice pretty good deals. I want to show you guys the deal that I got and the weapon that I got and the reason I got it. So this weapon just here is pretty nice, right? 2.16 attacks per second. The way I found that this one was I listed items, buyout or not buyout. Then I put in my 2.09, but when I searched, I clicked on attack speed just here and started searching from the top down. So you're seeing things like, 10 exalts for like a physical one here. It's not really interesting. We're looking for elemental ones. You're scrolling down and you start to see ones without buyouts every here and there that have the 2.1 attack speed. Now I found one that was priced at 3 Chaos, I believe it was, or was it? It might have even been less than that with 2.16 and Tri-Ele. Now, one of the elemental rolls on there had been mastercrafted, so it had fire damage roll, it had a lightning damage roll, and then a mastercrafted cold damage roll. Now, I knew that if I bought that weapon, removed that. So you can pay a Scour to someone with a leveled up Vagan. I don't have enough leveled up, but you can pay a Scour to someone with a leveled up Vagan to remove that mastercrafted mod, and then I was able to add weapon ele damage. So I found something that was priced okay, or maybe a little bit underpriced for a tri-ele attack speed weapon, but then I was able to add weapon elemental damage roll. So this means what you're looking for to try and get yourself a really good bargain is either something that has 2 prefixes and an open spot for weapon ele, and then calculate the price of the item with the price of you adding on the weapon ele, or something that has tri-ele rolls, because people are still adding that to weapons and trying to sell them because they believe they're going to get more value out of the tri-ele weapon, and then add the weapon elemental damage yourself. But as long as you've got that attack speed, and as long as you've got at least 1 open prefix, you're going to be on a good way towards getting a good start just here. So I'll tell you what, I'll have a bit of a browse now and try and find a pretty good bargain on PoE Trade now. See if I can find something good for you guys. Although, you won't be able to get this, but just as an example. Here's an example of something that I think is not a good option. It seems tempting. We have 2.15 attacks per second. We have Tri-Ele. The lightning roll is okay. But we're looking at something like a low cold damage roll. Like, this is pretty bad. 8 to 18 just here. So let me bring up cold damage just here. And we see 8 to 18 is like an eye level 29 mod. Now this would be outweighed easily by like even a terrible weapon elemental damage roll from the Mastercraft. Like even like an 8 or 10% would be way better than this just here. So very overpriced rapier just there. Something you wouldn't want to get. So I'll keep searching for something good. Okay, here we go. I found it. I was worried I wasn't going to find something good for a while there, guys. Let me double check this. Reduced enemy stun threshold. Where is reduced enemy stun threshold? Please be a prefix. I'm sorry, please be a suffix. Pretty sure that's a blaze stun threshold reduction. Oh, yes. Here we go. 2 chaos. We have 2.13 attacks per second. We have 7 to 11 fire damage, not very good. 7 to 96 lightning damage is really quite good. And then open spot for weapon elemental damage. You pay 2 chaos for this outright. Add the weapon elemental damage for 3 arcs. Hopefully don't get scammed by Vegan. I mean, the range is pretty wide. I had to mastercraft this one twice, so that added a little bit more cost. It's 8 to 22%, I believe, so you can get scammed a little bit, but hopefully get something at least in the middle, and then you're good to go. Couple chaos for a endgame weapon that's going to carry you into level 78 maps. So good stuff. So that's an example. Hopefully that gives you guys an idea of what to look for. We've got the 2 prefixes, we've got an open prefix, and we've got a decent attack speed weapon. That's good to go, and at a good price. I'm sure you could search for longer, wait a little bit more, and find something like this for a chaos, or not even, like, maybe even an alch or something like that, because some of these you can get pretty damn cheap. Anyway, guys, that's it for now. Hopefully you found this helpful. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.